Hello, my name is Josey Peele. I'm with the engineering department here at AMADAS Industries, and today we're going to go over one of our self-propelled combines. Behind us is one of our 2024 model 9990s. We're going to go over some of the setting characteristics of this machine, try to help you optimize performance. We're also going to look at a general overview of the machine and give you some suggested maintenance points to check on a day-to-day basis. So as you might proceed during harvest season, we're just going to take a walk around the machine, point out a few things that you should inspect on a daily basis. And these will more or less be your normal maintenance routine, and show you how to best access certain components. All right, we'll start off taking a look at the front of the combine here at the header. First thing to notice, of course, is pickup springs. You want to change any springs that are broken or bent or have become severely worn or sharp. You may also need to tighten up a few bolts on header bands or straighten up any header bands that have been bent in the course of operation. Another thing to consider with the feeding performance of the combine is the height of the header auger. When the machine leaves the factory, the auger is in its highest position to help with feeding. After you've run the machine for a few days, a few weeks, and you've slicked up the bottom of the concave, it's advisable to drop the auger down to where you only have, say, an inch, inch and a half of clearance down here underneath the auger. That will help promote more even feeding across the front of the combine. To make adjustments to the header auger's height, you would come over here, open up your side plate. You see this adjustment plate here. Behind the drive, there's 4 bolts that you would need to loosen, and then you can raise or lower the plate with this adjustment screw. And there's a mirror image of that on the opposite end of the head. Also, while you've opened up the shielding, of course, you want to make sure that your drive chains are tight. Your idler here to adjust the auger drive, and your second idler down here to adjust your header pickup. While we're in here, don't forget to grease this reversing clutch so that will continue to give you trouble-free operation. Afterwards, we'll just proceed around the combine and open up the shields so we can take a look at the chains and belts. I want to ensure that the belts, I'd say, preferably have no more than half, 3/4 of an inch of slack in the middle, and adjust those as needed. While you're looking at things here, also take a look at your bearings. Another thing to look at in the morning, open up your cross auger door. Make sure you don't have any roots, rocks, any obstructions that have collected in here that may damage your crop as it's trying to be blown up the elevator. You can open up this release door down here to help clear out any obstructions that you may need to. You check the tension on your elevator fan belt. That's a very key thing to check on after, say, your first hour of operation. After the combine's had time to work under load and the belts have had time to heat up, you're going to want to tighten that belt. It's going to have worked loose initially. Coming around the back, you'll want to look for any obstructions that have accumulated in the shaker pan or on the chaff spreader. Any material that's built up on the top of the disc separator, you would want to clean. You can also get underneath the machine, check out the condition of the stemmer saws, see whether or not you need to clean any sticks or trash out from there that might create buildup or blockage during operation. Proceed around the rear of the combine to the right, still just checking the condition of belts and chains, making sure everything is tight. One chain to pay attention to is your chain here driving the disc separator. This has gone to a single chain drive from originally a series of triangular chains. You're just going to loosen and twist these eccentric idlers here to tension the chain as the seasons go on. However, you may need to adjust this angle bracket up to make sure that the chain remains in contact with the bottom of the sprocket. You just loosen these bolts here to be able to adjust that. Another thing to pay special mind to after the first hour of operation is this main drive belt here. You will probably need to tighten that up along with your cleaning fan belt here. That's something you also want to pay attention to on a regular basis. You also want to check the tracking on the go conveyor. For the most part, that can be adjusted out left to right with your adjuster bolt on the forward side, where you can loosen up that bearing and move it up or down as needed to track the belt. Coming back around the front side, you're just again looking at chains and belts. You're running your first 3 picking cylinders. Make sure that there's not too much slack in those chains. Also look at the chain that's running your unloading conveyor around. Make sure that that chain hasn't gotten bound up or that there's too much slack in that chain. To access your picking springs, this is significantly easier than it was on previous generations of self-propelled. There's 4 clips to be removed, and then you should be able to pull up on the front. You're going to go back and up, and you can pull this cover off, and you have access to the number 1 and number 2 picking cylinder, as well as the front overhead stripper bar, so you can inspect the teeth as needed there. Next place to check is the number 3 picking cylinder, which is under the cab. Remove this side shield. You're going to come in and remove these 3 bolts. You'll need to loosen up these set screws on both sides of the machine. Then, once this plate is removed, this cover will slide directly out this side, and you can access the 3rd cylinder to inspect and replace springs as needed. Before you get ready to start the machine, climb up to the engine deck, check fluids. Your DEF tank is here, immediately to the left of the ladder. Diesel fuel fill just beside your DEF. Don't forget to check your engine coolant. You just look through this access window here to see the overflow tank and check your coolant levels. You may also want to inspect your radiator and oil coolers. I'm going to open up the radiator shroud. And you can access your radiator and coolers and blow them off if needed. Here's your main hydraulic reservoir. Before you check the hydraulic reservoir, you need to make sure that the head is sitting all the way down on the ground. The basket is down so that you don't inadvertently overfill it. You want the oil, I will say 2/3 of the sight glass should be sufficient. To check your engine oil, your main engine gear case oil, it'll come in through this hatch. There's your engine oil there, the yellow cap. To check the main engine gear case, I'm going to come over here to the left. Got a dipstick here that you can pull out and check your main engine gear case oil. Air filters, we all know peanut picking is a very dusty process. You have your main air filter here. Pull out and clean out a primary and a secondary internal filter. Also over here you have a primary and secondary filter. for air that will fill the exhaust chamber. So it's important to keep those clean. While you're up here, you can also go over to your basket inlet. Certain conditions, this screen can get plugged up. You can come up here, pull out sticks, rocks, whatever debris may be hung up in there. You have an excessive amount of trash built up over here that's blown through the duct. Get that cleaned off as well. Don't forget to grease this pivot on occasion. One other often overlooked component to check or clean is your transmission. There's a lot of trash that will build up on that, on top of it, and all the electronics and hydraulic solenoids there. I would advise that you blow that off, if not every day, at least every other day, just to prevent any issues. So we'll crank the combine and raise the basket so we can access the remainder of the picking cylinders and look at the separator cylinders. First, when you crank the machine, you may want to check for diagnostic trouble codes, error codes. Main menu, system, diagnostic center, trouble codes. See what codes presented themselves the day before. If there's nothing that troubles you, you can clear the codes and be ready for the coming day. Now we'll raise the basket so we can check the 4th and 5th picking cylinder and the 1st separator cylinder. After we've raised the basket, let's keep safety in mind. Before you do anything else, we need to put the safety strut in place. And now you have access to your 2nd overhead stripper cylinder, 4th and 5th picking cylinder, retention board, accelerator rotor, and you can see the 1st separator cylinder. And inspect for concave damage, broken, missing teeth, and replace and repair as needed. While you have good access with the basket up, you can come in here to grease your main drive line. Of course, you have grease zerks at all your joints and pedestal shaft bearing there that can be greased. You can also look in the top of your ductwork. If you've been harvesting and it's been wet, often you'll have a large accumulation of mud in the top of the basket that you might want to clean out to avoid LSKs. When you're done, don't forget to put your strut back down. And now we can set the basket back down. Take a look inside your basket. You want to inspect the augers in the bottom of the basket. Make sure you haven't damaged any flighting. There's no obstructions or buildup under the base of the augers. If you need to reach into the basket to access your bin full sensor or your basket camera to wipe off the lens or clean off your basket light, you can rotate this door around and you have immediate access to the camera and to the light and there to the bin full sensor. As far as getting ready to thresh or pick peanuts, we have some suggested settings in our operator's manual and a quick start guide. But those are all suggestions. It's up to you to look at the condition of the crop and the condition of the vines. Obviously, greener, wet vines are going to require tougher picking conditions and change how you have the machine set versus very dry vines, very dry peanuts. We'll go with our initial, say, early season setting that may be a little tougher, perhaps a little bit on the greener side. Almost always advise leaving the first overhead stripper fully engaged. That's going to help keep the front cylinder clean. It's going to help the combine feed better. You probably have less broken teeth on that front cylinder to have to replace. Depending on what width head you have, where you would want this header pressure transducer plugged into. To the front is for 19 25-foot heads, to the rear is 30 and 32-foot heads. And that has to do with how the combine is going to respond to automatic header height control. The front 3 cylinders are on a 2-speed chain drive. Normally advise starting with that on the high-speed side. To determine whether you're on the high or low-speed side, you're going to look at the rear double sprocket on this jack shaft. The larger side of the interior sprocket is going to be your high-speed side. In this case, a 24-tooth. So that's a 22-tooth. That's the low-speed side. For this combine, you're going to shift the chain over on this sprocket and your larger sprocket up toward the front. Variable speed settings. As the combine will leave the factory, you're going to have a range from about 300 to 400. It's looking at the 4th picking cylinder. As this cylinder retracts, you're pushing that variable speed cylinder forward. That's speeding up your combine. In the case that you are in West Texas trying to harvest Valencias, there are options for a smaller jack shaft sprocket and an even larger front sprocket on the number 3 combine. If you still need slower cylinder speed on number 4 and number 5, you can drop that speed down as low as about 260. The way you're going to do that, the bracket here that the base of this cylinder is attached to, there's 4 bolts in there and an adjustment bolt. You're going to take those 4 bolts out. You're going to flip that bracket around, and the adjustment bolt will go from the front to the back. There's another little tab back there that it would stick through, and that will drop your speed down, say 260 to 310 for extreme dry conditions. In the case that you decide you do not want to run stemmer saws, you still have to have a speed readout to satisfy the combine. And look here, right behind these hoses, you'll see a tone wheel with no speed sensor on it. That is your substitute speed sensor. You can take this bracket and speed sensor off here and remount it to this bracket here, and it will pick up this tone wheel, and you can run without stemmer saws. Your elevator or lift fan, normally I would suggest starting with that about halfway. This particular combine, the readout in the cab is around 20 to get you in this position. But once you're running and peanuts are coming into the basket, you can tell whether or not you need to raise that or lower it. You don't want peanuts slamming all the way across the basket into the sidewall, but you want the basket to fill up well. Chaff spreaders have become a necessity on a machine this size. But depending on what width of head you're running, exactly how fast you may want those spinning, as far as how far they're going to throw material. These are hydraulically controlled. You're going to adjust their speed with this flow control here. So pull it down this way toward 10, that's faster. Up toward 0 is slow. We normally recommend having it set about 5 for average conditions. The tailboard At the back of the disc separator, you can see that is almost all the way up. A good position to start with. You might want to raise it up just a little bit so that the top of the tailboard is even with the top of the disc separator shaft itself. Usually in very green conditions, you can drop the tailboard just a little bit. In exceptionally dry conditions, you might want to have the tailboard raised up all the way. It'll help catch some of those lighter peanuts from blowing over at the very end. As far as cleaning and separating, I recommend run the cleaning air half, maybe 2/3 of the way open. Just for your visual indication, if you're in the cab making adjustments, that's going to read somewhere around 15 or 16, give or take, but every combine is going to be a little bit different in how they read. Combines come standard with 2 sets of breast teeth, one set here under the number 1 cylinder, and a second set under the number 3 cylinder. If you are running primarily Virginia type peanuts, I would advise that you leave the bars under the combine, but just take the teeth off of them. That would cause you a lot of shelling problems. If you are running runner type peanuts, leave the springs on the bars and you can engage them as necessary. Most of the time you're not going to need those unless your peanuts have been rained on a couple of times and the vines have really started to deteriorate. Then you're going to need the breast springs to pick the crop up and make it engage with the picking cylinders. As you come up the ladder, right outside the cab is the second overhead stripper. Initial startup, I would tell you to probably leave that disengaged. If you check behind yourself and you've still got peanuts on the vine, you might want to start engaging that. Go down at least halfway to start with, if not 3/4 of the way, and see if that finishes getting peanuts off the vine. If it still doesn't fully engage it, if you still have peanuts on the vine, then I would suggest turning up your threshing speed just a little bit. There is still the option for the retention board on this combine. That's probably the last thing that I would engage. For the most part, I would leave it disengaged. Engaging it in green crop is pretty detrimental to you. It'll actually start making long hay bales. It'll get spit out the back, so we'll try to avoid that in greener, tougher conditions. I want to get in the cab and see what some of the threshing controls look like. All right, now that we're in the cab, we can take a look at some of your in-cab adjustment features, some of the displays. It's a primary corner post display. Will give you engine power consumption, temperature, fuel, DEF, engine RPM, ground speed. This number is a relative number indicating header height, range from 0 to 55 to 60. The bottom of this screen related to the sieve and the chaffer are non-functional on the 9990. Move over to the hydro handle. You have your basket lift. Right is up, left is down. Header controls, you're only going to be using the up and the down. So up to raise the head, down to lower the head. Here's your conveyor swing. This is based on the grain combine, so the illustration is backwards compared to how it actually is on this machine. But to the top is going to extend the conveyor. The bottom is going to retract the conveyor. This yellow button is going to engage the unloading system. If your combine is equipped with a GPS receiver, you can use this button to engage your auto steer. There you have an emergency stop. These buttons 1, 2, and 3 are used to select certain height set points or to re-engage auto steer if you're using automatic header height control. Down here on the console, which have your parking, brake indicator, your gear selector, engine speeds. Here's your 10% throttle control. This only functions when the engine is at high idle and when the separator is engaged. Of course, here's your separator engage, your header engage. Pushing the lever forward engages the header. This switch does not engage reverse. On our machine, that is done with a foot pedal down in the floor. Just step on that when you want to go in reverse. Take the foot off, it'll go back and forward. Over here we have some additional buttons to check settings, cleaning fan, threshing speed, set elevator air control. These buttons can also be accessed through these quick buttons down at the bottom of the display. Some of these buttons are non-functional on the peanut combine, such as the chaff spreader adjust and the grain tank covers. We want to go in and look at some header parameters. Here you have an option to increase or decrease header raise or lower speed. The sensitivity level if you're using automatic header height control. There is no tilt on this combine, so that function is inactive. Draper belt speed is what you will use to control the header speed on this machine. There is no actual numerical readout. You're just going to hit plus or minus until you think that the speed looks correct for your forward travel speed. You don't want to push the windrows. If you are, you have your header speed a little too slow. If you're pulling the windrows apart, your header speed is too fast. I'm going to slow it down. Have a quick screen for harvest settings all in one point. Adjust your cleaning fan damper, your threshing speed, or your elevator speed. Cleaning fan speed, we do not change the actual cleaning fan speed. If you see that number starting to drop, you may have shear or belt problems over on the right hand side of the combine. And here to the right, you'll see your peanut door alarm. This will sound if the door at the bottom of the ductwork is blown open. If, in the course of operating your combine, your cleaning fan belt speed drops dramatically, it is either this belt is loose or this main drive belt is loose. Even when you think it's tight, probably tighten it up just a little bit more. If for some reason when you are harvesting you may get an alarm and your threshing or separating could shut off, and the combine will tell you you have 0 beater speed. That was some terminology we could not change from the John Deere side, and that comes back to this sensor right here, your rear stemmer saw shaft. That's going to tell you that this shaft has quit turning. Maybe as simple as the belt on the right hand side is too loose, or you've got plugged up with vines on the inside. You may need to drop the tailboard down where you can get an air nozzle in there, blow that out, or a rod to pick material out, and then tighten up your belt and you should be good to go. If for some reason your ductwork has gotten plugged up while you're harvesting, this door is going to blow open, this limit switch is going to open, and you're going to get a peanut door alarm in the cab. Well, thank you for coming along with us today. We hope you found this video useful. If you have additional questions, please don't forget to consult your parts and operators manuals, which should be with your machine. If you have additional more detailed questions, please don't hesitate to call AMADAS Industries main office. and you'll be connected with someone in our sales service or engineering departments that can answer any additional questions. Please stay tuned for further videos on our other lines of equipment.